Now we are going to discuss phases of teaching. Outline of the presentation, meaning of teaching, definition of teaching, variables of teaching, phases of teaching, pre-active phase, interactive phase, post-active phase. Points of consideration in pre-active, interactive and post-active phases of teaching. Meaning of teaching. It is referred to either an occupation or profession of a community known as teacher. Teaching is recognized as a formal occupation where individuals known as teachers engage in the systematic process of imparting knowledge and skills. This professional status highlights the importance of educators in society as they play a critical role in shaping the minds and futures of their students. Teachers undergo training and development to enhance their skill and effectiveness in the classroom. It is, it is an activity or activities of a group undertaken to help an individual to learn or acquire some knowledge, skill, attitudes, or interest. Teaching is fundamentally an activity aimed at fostering learning. It involves methods and strategies designed to help individuals acquire knowledge, develop skills, and cultivate attitudes or interest. This process can include various techniques such as lectures, discussions, hands on activities, and assessments, all aimed at promoting understanding and retention of information. It is quite complex social, cultural, and ethical process designed in social and cultural context. Teaching is not merely a technical skill, it is also a complex social and cultural process. It occurs within specific social and cultural context, meaning that the values, beliefs, and practices of a community can significantly influence how teaching and learning take place. Additionally, ethical considerations play a crucial role in teaching as educators must navigate issues of fairness, respect, and responsibility towards the students. So, teaching is an essential professional that involves deliberate activities aimed at facilitating learning, deeply rooted the social and cultural fabric of society and guided by ethical principles. Definition of teaching. H.C. Morrison. Teaching is an intimate contact between a more mature personality and a less mature one, which is designed to further the education of the later. This definition emphasizes the relational aspect of teaching. It suggests that teaching is a personal interaction between a more experienced individual, typically a teacher, and a less experienced, less mature individual, usually a student. The goal of this interaction is to enhance the educational development of the student. The term intimate contact implies that teaching is not just about conveying information but also about building a connection that fosters growth and understanding. This perspective underscores the importance of the teacher's role in guiding and nurturing the student's learning journey. John Brubacher. Teaching is an arrangement and manipulation of a situation in which there are gaps and obstruction which an individual will seek to overcome and from which he is learned in the course of doing so. Brubacher's definition focuses on the structural and situational elements of teaching. He describes teaching as a process that involves creating specific conditions where learners encounter challenges represented as gaps and obstructions. These obstacles encourage learners to engage actively with the material, promoting them to seek solutions and learn through their experiences. This viewpoint highlights the importance of problem solving and critical thinking in education, suggesting that real learning occurs when students confront difficulties and strive to overcome them. So, both definitions together illustrate that teaching is a dynamic interaction that not only nurtures personal connection but also creates stimulating environments where learners can confront challenges and grow intellectually. Teaching, therefore, is both a relational and a situational process essential for fostering effective learning. Variables of teaching. Independent variable, teacher. This refers to the teacher's methods, styles, and approaches to instruction. The teacher's expertise, qualifications, and ability to engage students can significantly influence the learning process. Dependent variable, students. This encompasses the students' learning outcomes such as the understanding of the material, academic performance, motivation, and overall engagement in the learning process. The dependent variable is affected by the independent variable, as changes in teaching methods can lead to varying result in student performance. Intervening variable, environment. The learning environment can be a crucial factor that mediates the relationship between the teacher and student outcome. This includes physical aspects like classroom layout, resource available, and technology, as well as social factors like classroom culture, peer interaction, and emotional support. A positive and supportive environment can enhance the impact of effective teaching, while a negative environment may hinder student learning regardless of the teacher's effectiveness. In summary, while the teacher independent variable directly influences student outcome, the environment can either facilitate or obstruct that relationship. Teaching. Three phases. 1. Pre-active phase, interactive phase, post-active phase. It is possibly related to a lesson plan or teaching strategy, and a brief overview of each phase of teaching. Pre-active phase, planning stage. This is the preparation stage where educators set objectives, select appropriate teaching materials, and develop a lesson plan. Key considerations include understanding the learner's need, establishing goals, and choosing methods to achieve these goals. Interactive phase, implementation stage. This phase occurs in the classroom where the planned lesson is delivered. It involves engaging students through interactive techniques such as discussion, group work, or hands-on activities. The teacher facilitates learning, adapts to student responses, and ensures that the learning objectives are met. Post-active phase, evaluation stage. After the class, this stage involves assessing both student understanding and the effectiveness of the teaching method used. This can include quizzes, feedback sessions, or reflective practices. The aim is to evaluate what worked, what didn't, and how future lessons can be improved. The pre-active phase is crucial for effective teaching as it lays the groundwork for a successful learning experience. So, it is a planning phase of teaching. A good planning makes the task of the teacher smooth, functionable, and successful. There are two major steps involved in this step: establishment of some kind of goals or objectives. Teachers should clearly articulate what they want students to learn by the end of the lesson or unit. These objectives should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Behavioral terms. Objectives should be framed in behavioral terms, meaning they should specify observable actions the students will demonstrate. For example, instead of saying understand the concept, you might say students will be able to explain the concept in their own words. Discovering ways and means to achieve objectives. Content exploration. Teachers need to develop into the subject matter to determine the most relevant and engaging content to deliver. This may involve selecting key concepts, examples, and supporting materials that align with the established objectives. Resource identification. Identifying appropriate resources is essential. This could include textbook, multimedia resources, online tools, or hands on materials that can enhance the learning experience. Teaching strategies. Planning various instruction strategies that cater to different learning styles is important. This could involve direct instruction, collaborative learning, project based activities, or technology integration to keep students engaged. By thoroughly planning during the pre-active phase, teachers can create a structured and effective learning environment that maximizes student engagement and achievement. Points of consideration at pre-active phase. Choice of content or material. Ensure the content is relevant to the learner's need and aligns with curriculum standards. Consider students' interest and prior knowledge to make the material engaging. Organization of content. Structure the material logically, starting with foundational concepts and gradually moving to more complex ideas. Use thematic or interdisciplinary approaches to connect different subjects. Principles of maxims of teaching. Principles and maxims of teaching. Reflect on principles like the need for clarity, simplicity, and engagement in teaching methods. Apply maxims such as from known to unknown and concrete to abstract to enhance understanding. Use of teaching aids. Choose aids that complement the content and cater to different learning styles: visual, auditory, kinesthetic. Ensure the aids are accessible and enhance rather than distract from the learning experience. Methods, techniques, and strategies. Select diverse teaching methods, example lecture, discussion, hands-on activities to cater to varied learning preferences. Consider collaborative techniques like group work or peer teaching to promote interaction. Next, duration, place, and management of classroom teaching. Plan the timing of each segment of the lesson to maintain pace and engagement. Choose a conducive learning environment that is organized and free of distractions. Evaluation tools. Evaluation tools. Decide on formative and summative assessment tools that match learning objectives. Example quizzes, projects, presentations. Explain the evaluation criteria to students to set expectations and provide a roadmap for success. By carefully considering these points, educators can create a well-structured and effective learning experience that fosters student engagement and achievement. Evaluation tools. Formative and summative assessment. Formative and summative assessment are two fundamental approaches to evaluate student learning and performance in educational settings. Formative assessment is a type of evaluation that occurs during the learning process. Learning processന്റെ സമയത്ത് നടക്കുന്ന അസസ്മെൻ്റ് ആണ് ഫോർമേറ്റീവ് അസസ്മെൻറ്റ്. എക്സാമ്പിൾ ക്വിസസ്, ക്ലാസ് ഡിസ്കഷൻ, പിയർ റിവ്യൂ, observations. On the other hand, summative assessment is conducted after a unit of instruction to evaluate student learning, typically by comparing it against some standard or benchmark. This type of assessment is used to assign grades. Examples: final exam, end of term projects, standardized test, midterm exam, performance task. The interactive phase. The interactive phase of teaching is a crucial stage in the educational process where planned lessons are executed and effective classroom interactions take place. This phase is characterized by various activities that contribute to a dynamic learning environment. So, the second phase of teaching is concerned with the implementation and carrying out what has been planned or decided at the planning stage or pre active phase. It is the stage for actual teaching, success or failure of which depends on the degree and quality of the classroom interaction between teachers and pupil. The major activities undertaken in this phase may be grouped as number one, perception. Perception refers to how students interpret and understand the information presented by the teacher. It involves the initial reception of ideas, concepts, and skills during the lesson. Its key aspects: attention, engaging students' attention through stimulating content, questions, or activities. Understanding, ensuring that students grasp the material being taught. This can be assessed through questioning and observing student expressions. Cognitive engagement, encouraging students to think critically about the content and relate it to prior knowledge. Strategies, use multimedia resources to present information in various formats, videos, slides, etc. Incorporate hands on activities or demonstrations to make learning tangible. Pose open ended questions that prompt discussions and deeper thinking. Next, diagnosis. Diagnosis involves assessing students' understanding and identifying any misconceptions or gaps in knowledge during the teaching process. It allows the teacher to adjust instruction based on students' needs. Key aspects in this stage, in this diagnosis. Number one, formative assessment, utilizing informal assessments such as quizzes, pools of observational notes to gauge understanding. Feedback, providing immediate feedback to students based on the performance and understanding. Adaptation, modifying teaching strategies and pacing based on diagnostic insight to better meet the learning needs of students. Strategies, conduct quick assessments like thumbs up, thumbs down to gauge students' comprehension. Facilitate group discussions where students can express their understanding and classify doubts. Use exit tickets to reflect on what students learned and what they found challenging. Reaction process. Next is reaction process. The reaction process encompasses how students respond to the teaching methods and content presented. This feedback can indicate the effectiveness of the instruction and the level of student engagement. Key aspects in this idea: student engagement, observing how actively students participate in discussions and activities. Then, students' emotional response, understanding students' emotional reactions to the content which can influence their motivation and willingness to learn. Next, peer interaction, analyzing how students interact with each other during group work, discussions, and or collaborative tasks. Strategies in this idea: encourage students to ask questions and express their thoughts openly, fostering a safe learning environment. Use collaborative learning techniques such as group projects or peer teaching to enhance interaction. Regularly reflect on and discuss the learning process with students to gather the insights and feelings about the lesson. So, the interactive phase is essential for effective teaching and learning. By focusing on perception, diagnosis, and the reaction process, educators can create a responsive and adaptive classroom environment that meets the diverse needs of the students. Success in this phase is largely determined by the quality of interactions and the ability to adjust instruction based on real-time feedback and observations. Activities undertaken in the interactive phase. In the interactive phase of teaching, several activities are undertaken to enhance students' engagement and optimize learning. Perception, observation of classroom climate. Teachers actively observe students' mood, gestures, and activities to assess the overall atmosphere. This includes noticing signs of engagement or disengagement, enthusiasm, or confusion. Awareness of non-verbal cues. By paying attention to body language and interactions among students, educators can better understand how students are feeling and adjust their approaches to facilitate a more conducive learning environment. Perception, the classroom climate along with students' mood, gestures, and activities. Next, diagnosis. Assessment of entering behavior. Teachers evaluate students' prior knowledge and readiness to learn. This could involve informal assessment or discussions to understand what students already know and what gaps may exist. Engagement through questions and activities. In this phase, educators may ask questions to stimulate thinking or provide activities that encourage participation. This helps in gathering insights into students' understanding and interest, allowing for a more tailored instructional approach. Next, reactive process. Reactive process. Selecting appropriate stimuli. Based on the observations and assessments, teachers make informed decisions about the types of materials and activities that will best engage students. This might include using multimedia resources, hands-on activities, or collaborative projects that resonate with students. Explanation of reinforcement and feedback mechanism. Educators clarify how reinforcement will be applied. Example, praise, rewards, good. That is example for positive reinforcement. And how feedback will be provided. This transparency helps students understand and expectations and motivates them to participate actively, knowing that their efforts will be recognized. By effectively implementing these activities, educators can create a responsive and dynamic learning environment that fosters student involvement and enhances educational outcomes. Post-active phase. So the third phase. First is pre-active phase, second interactive phase, and third post-active phase. The third phase of teaching act is considered with the evaluation activities. First of all, the stipulated objective are considered and attempts are made to measure or assess the degree or qualities of the expected behavioral changes in the students as a result of the teaching activities performed in the interactive phase. So, the post-active phase is crucial in the teaching process as it focuses on evaluating the effectiveness of the instruction. This phase involves assessing whether the learning objectives have been met and how well students have absorbed the material. So, the assessment of objectives. Assessment. The first step is to revisit the objectives set at the beginning of the teaching act. These objectives serve as benchmark for evaluating students' performance and understanding. Measurement techniques. Various methods can be employed to assess student learning, tests and quizzes. These are structured assessment that can quantitatively measure students' knowledge, retention and understanding of the material. Observations. Teachers can observe students during their discussions or activities to gauge their engagement, comprehension and application of concepts. Reactions to questions. Analyzing students' responses to questions can provide insight into their critical thinking and grasp to the subject matter. Behavior in structured or unstructured situations. Observing how students behave in different contexts can reveal their ability to apply learned skills in real world scenarios. Selection of evaluation techniques. Teachers must choose the right evaluation techniques based on the objectives, the nature of the content, and the learning styles of the students. This decision is critical as the chosen method should effectively measure the desired outcomes. Feedback and reflection. After the evaluation, providing Constructive feedback helps students understand their strength and areas for improvement. It also encourages the self reflection and motivates further learning. Continuous improvement. The insights gained from this phase can inform future teaching practices, enabling educators to refine their approaches and better meet the needs of the students. So, the post active phase is about systematically assessing the impact of teaching on student learning and making informed decisions to enhance educational outcomes. Points of consideration in post active phase. Evaluation activities. The post-active phase involves conducting various evaluation activities or operations to assess the effectiveness of the instruction. These evaluation activities help determine the extent to which the desired learning outcomes were achieved. Selection of evaluation techniques. During this phase, the teacher or instructional designer selects appropriate evaluation techniques or gather feedback or student learning. Common techniques include test quizzes, observations, and other forms of assessment. The selection of evaluation techniques should be aligned with the instructional objectives and the learning content. Assessing instructional objectives. In the post-active phase, the suitability and appropriateness of the stipulated instructional objective are thoroughly assessed. The extent or quality of the objective's accomplishment is evaluated, which helps determine whether further continuation, alteration, or improvement is necessary. Decisions regarding reteaching. Based on the feedback and evaluation result, decisions are made regarding the need for reteaching or providing additional support to students. If the evaluation indicates that certain learning objectives were not fully met, the teacher may decide to reteach the content or implement remedial measures. Evaluating classroom environment and learning situation. The post-active phase also involves evaluating the overall classroom environment and the effectiveness of the learning situation. This assessment helps identify areas for improvement in the instructional process, such as the learning material, teaching methods, or the physical learning environment. By carefully considering these key points in the post-active phase, the teacher or instructional designer can give valuable insights into the effectiveness of the instruction, make informed decisions about future improvements, and enhance the overall teaching and learning experience. Interrelation among the phases of teaching. The three phases of teaching, pre-active, interactive, and post-active, are interconnected and have a strong interrelationship. Number 1, pre-active phase. In the pre-active phase, the teacher engages in planning, preparation, and decision-making before the actual instruction. This phase involves setting instructional objectives, selecting appropriate content and materials, and designing the overall instructional strategy. The decisions made in the pre-active phase lay the foundation for the interactive and post-active phases. Interactive phase. The interactive phase is the actual implementation and delivery of the instruction in the classroom. During this phase, the teacher interacts with students, facilitates learning activities, and responds to the dynamics of the classroom. The interactive phase is heavily influenced by the decisions and planning made in the pre-active phase. However, the interactive phase may also lead to adjustment or modifications in the original plan based on the teacher's observations and interactions with students. Post-active phase. The post-active phase involves the evaluation and reflection on the effectiveness of the instruction. This phase includes activities such as assessing student learning, evaluating the suitability of the instructional objectives, and making decisions about further instruction. The insights and feedback gathered during the post-active phase can inform and influence the planning and decision making in the pre-active phase for future instruction. The interrelationship among these three phases is cyclical, iterative. The decisions made in the pre-active phase shape the interactive phase, while the experience and observations from the interactive phase inform the post-active phase. The findings and conclusions from the post-active phase in turn provide valuable input for the next iterative of the pre-active phase. This interconnection allows teachers to continuously refine and improve the instructional practices, ensuring a dynamic and responsive teaching and learning process.